I don't know what's in that cup, Kate, but you don't have to be
Neither
method.
do I. I have no idea. Somebody handed it to me in the street.
Welcome to the Let Me Save You 25 Years podcast. I am your host, Shawn David Nelson, sometimes known as that love sack guy. That's me. Hey, thanks for listening. Thanks for making this podcast in the top, like 1-2% of all podcasts on earth. It's because you shared it with a friend. If you haven't shared it with a friend, please, share it out there. Help us get the word out. I don't make any money off of advertisements or anything. The platform does a few ads for themselves, but I just try to bring you the most successful people on earth every week and have very unique conversations with them around these Shawnisms. So give it a 5-star rating on Apple Pods or Spotify, whatever platform you're listening on, YouTube. Make a comment. It all helps move the algorithm, helps us build what we're trying to build here for everyone. So listen. Colonel Sanders, Ray Kroc, founder of McDonald's, Vera Wang, famous designer, Ariana Huffington, the Huffington Post, Bernie Marcus, founder of Home Depot. What do they all have in common? They got started in their 40s, 50s, and 60s. They got started. I was lucky enough, strangely enough, to make the first sack when I was 18 years old. And here I am 27 years later, running the same silly company that I kind of started right out of high school. Everybody's story is different. But if I'm being honest, Lovesac didn't even start to become what you see today until I was 15 years in and had already been through a full bankruptcy, start over, reorganization. It's never too late. That's what we're going to talk about on today's podcast with a legitimate celebrity. I can't believe we got her on my favorite TV show ever. And we got Meredith the drunk. You're going to love this. Listen, we get to talking about how you owe it to yourself to support yourself. So wherever you are right now, whatever job you're working, be proud of yourself. You are supporting yourself. We'll talk deeply about how you don't have to fall in love with your job. Just do yourself a favor and find a few things that you like about it and keep going, because it's a secret superpower to be pleasantly persistent. Those who are pleasantly persistent over time are going to have great success. We talk about how that works, how that unfolds. You'll know when you've found the right dream to pursue, when you'll do anything to keep moving towards that dream, like waiting tables, paying the bills, however, without losing sight of what you're trying to achieve. And when it comes to your career goals, just stay in your lane and focus on the road ahead. Don't compare your journey with anyone else's. Comparison is the thief of joy. And as Kate says, coming up, you need to protect your journey along the way. Enjoy the journey. We get into all of this and more with the amazing Kate Flannery. She's just, come on. She's Meredith from The Office. Check this out. My guest today is proof that it is never too late to go after the life you really want, even if you're waiting tables like I was, and like she was, while your big break is literally airing on TV. You will know her as the hilariously unfiltered Meredith Palmer from The Office, a role that made her a household name. But Kate's story goes far beyond Dunder Mifflin. Before her success, she spent years grinding it out in comedy clubs, theaters, restaurants, never losing sight of her passion or her sense of humor. Since then, she's done it all. She's had hit sitcoms, Dancing with the Stars, Masked Singer, sold out stage shows, still doing it on a national tour, coming right up with Jane Lynch. Kate is living proof that success doesn't follow any timeline. It follows persistence. And today we are talking about exactly that, the power of patience, perseverance, and why it's never too late to bet on yourself. Please welcome to the show, the one and only Kate Flannery.
Hey, Shawn from Lovesac. What's up?
What's up? Man, this is like they say, never meet, your heroes. Like the whole cast of The Office. I mean, I am a fan. So cool to be with you.
It's all downhill from here, just so you know.
Perfect. All right. So without even thinking too hard, when you heard our Shawnism of the day, it's never too late.
Yeah.
What's the first thing that came to mind for you?
Well, I think it's the story of my life. I'm definitely a late bloomer. And it's not that I didn't want to be a success earlier. I just, I had some things to learn. I had some roadblocks. And I also had to learn that sometimes your life is informed by your failures. And if you want to have an informative life, you're going to have a lot of failures, and that's okay.
Man, so I wrote a book about our whole story at Lovesac. It's called Let Me Save You 25 Years, just like this podcast. But the subtitle is more telling. Let Me Save You 25 Years, Mistakes, Miracles, and Lessons from the Lovesac story. And I feel you. Like I made every mistake, man, and completely failed. We had to start over as a company. So I can appreciate a little bit where you're coming from. What comes to mind right away when you talk about these failures? What's the first
Well, the first
failure?
thing, I wanted to be a child star. My mom was not very cooperative. And actually, I'm super grateful that she wasn't, because
Yeah, you'd be a strung out like heroin user if you.
totally. I actually worked with a child actor that I had loved as a kid. Like 2 weeks before my mom died, I got to tell her on her deathbed, "You were right. You were right, and I was wrong. Thank you." Really, because it's
Wow.
not. It's like she wasn't being overprotective. She was being appropriately protective.
Mm.
So, I feel like the good news about that is that, I got to go to, high school, Catholic girls high school and a regular theater college. And, it's funny. I just got, uh, in my high school Hall of Fame a couple weeks ago, and my speech before, I thought this is so absurd because I had so many failures in high school. I had auditioned for like local talent shows that were on TV, didn't get them. I feel like everything I tried out for cheerleading, and I had been the captain of the cheerleaders in 8th grade, didn't even make the high school team. I was like, so
Really?
there was so many more valleys than peaks for sure. Not that I didn't have some victories, but I was not like, that kid that most likely to succeed, not by a long shot. And I remember also, my favorite aunt sent me a ticket to check out Second City when I graduated college. She lived in Chicago, so I got to live with her and take class and then work for them. And that totally changed my life, completely changed my life. But I remember being up for SNL and not getting it. And actually, two friends of mine got it instead of me, two other women. And it's hard not to just be happy for your friends and feel, like you feel guilty if you feel it was a weird position to be put in. And after a lot of therapy, I realized like, it's crushing to have your life dream not work out. And I continued to try to pursue it for a couple years. And I realized, this is not there. I mean, they literally, one of the producers is like, that was it. Like we're the journey's over, like it's not happening. And I remember once I had that realization, I had to understand that just even being acknowledged by them was a big deal, and it
Yeah.
put me in some rarefied company. So again, you can look at it as completely negative and like your life is over, or maybe the beginning of your journey has just taken a new level. And that's kind of how I felt about it. So I say I didn't get SNL, and it just took 13 short years to get The Office.
Wow. 13 years. So was The Office your first kind of major break then?
Was, yeah.
Wow.
I'd done off Broadway and had like great reviews, and I'd done some stuff that had a buzz. I had a comedy act when I was doing when I first got hired in The Office. I ended up doing it for 20 years. It was like a dying lounge act, and we were more in the alternative cover band world. And we used to do alternate nights with like Patton Oswalt and Sarah Silverman and Mark Maron, like a lot of great
Yeah.
comedians. But we were not on the radar, and because it cost money to pay for the song rights. We were almost on Mad TV, but then their budget got cut, so we that didn't work out. That was like a year before I got The Office. So there's all these things that like almost happened, and but it's like this idea where you can look at what didn't happen, and then you can look at it also like, well, I was in some good company, and even though some people have had a huge bloom. Like I always say, I think Steve Carell was a late bloomer too. I mean, he done some TV shows, but he did a lot of failed pilots, and most of the TV show, all the TV shows except for The Office, didn't really last.
Mhm.
So, we're both late bloomers. I actually knew Steve at Second City when I was
Yeah.
there. And it's like, and it's okay. Even if you're not the biggest bloom, it's still great to be a late bloomer. It's still fantastic.
What kept you going all those years? Because, that's a long time, like 13 years to just keep grinding it out. And, you already felt like you missed your window as a child star, which you acknowledge turned out to be, you got to be careful not to judge things in the moment, right?
Yeah.
But what kept you going for all those years?
Well, I think I had enough yeses like along the way, enough support, good reviews. So I knew I wasn't delusional. And also, it's just tough because women in comedy, we just have a tougher road. I think for women in comedy, there are women who are funny because who can do characters, and there are some women who are beautiful who also happen to be funny. I'm in the first category, by the way. But it's one of those things where you have to figure out kind of what your lane is and enjoy staying in it instead of comparing yourself to other people. And I
Mhm.
think that's another thing that I learned. Also, I think at one point I thought if I was waiting tables and doing my comedy act and that was all that there was, I think I was okay with it. Like I had made with it. We had done some big comedy festivals with big people, and I felt like we were, respected. And even if we weren't getting, a special, because again, it was complicated because we did mashups of 70s and 80s songs in our act, and they were sort of integral to what was going on in the act. So, it's like you got to figure, but you're doing something regularly in Hollywood where people are coming every week, and we did the show every week for 5 years. And then once I got the office, a year after I got the office, we did it like the first Saturday of every month. We did some other gigs as well, but that was like the main like one thing. So again, I just feel like
Mhm.
for me, it's like a gym. Having a live audience, as great as it was to be on The Office, if you're writing your own material, it's so much, it's so much clearer when you have a live audience because the audience will tell you when you're not funny, and
Yeah.
you better fix it next time.
Mhm.
You better figure out how to get to the funny fast.
Yeah, that had to be a hard transition to go to tape where obviously your cast members could pat you on the back or laugh in between takes or producers could give you feedback, but like you don't know if it's really going to work till it plays back after edit and everything. And
Well, we were really lucky because we had the best producers, the best writers, we had the best
yeah.
directors. I mean, we had really big movie directors that wanted to do The Office, did it. Like J.J.
Mm.
Abrams and um, John Favreau and oh my! I mean, we had some really great, yeah, just great people, like great energy coming in, and it was it was very validating. So again, I mean, sometimes my storyline got cut. So at the first this like season 2, I was more nervous about that because I thought I was going to get fired because my storyline it just was kind of how it was. I remember I it didn't come out that Meredith was a drunk until Christmas, and we tried to do
Yeah.
the Halloween episode, and
Uh,
my everything I did in the Halloween episode was like cut complete. I just like walked past the camera once with my
really?
witch outfit with my brains coming out of my head like as a witch. The storyline was coming, and I was like, "Oh my god, am I doing this wrong? What am I doing?" But you just have to have faith that they're figuring it out too, and you also want to make sure that the show stays true to what it's supposed to. Like what the stories that need to get told first.
Yeah. I'm curious, like as an outsider looking in, I watch The Office, I know the show well, love it, love so many things about it. Ensemble cast, to your point, there's got to be a little bit of like competition there. People, I mean, you got a lot of funny people who doesn't want to make the cut. It's a little bit like Saturday Night Live, I guess that way. People are ad libbing a little bit, hoping to, but
Sure.
whatever. I've got to know like, what is that like behind the scenes?
Well, it's
Like,
not as competitive as SNL, and I
yeah.
do feel like we were all treated like a family.
Mm.
We were treated like there wasn't a hierarchy, which is very rare.
Right out of the
We all
gate?
knew there was, but you know,
Right out of the gate, was
pretty
that
much,
culture there?
yeah, yeah. I
Hmm.
mean,
That's
I also feel like that's Steve Carell because he's one of those guys who wants to make sure that the show is the most important thing, not him.
mhm, mhm.
But we all know he's really important. Come on, he's the guy. He's our guy. Um, no one's funnier, and like he's just a great actor too. So he made these moments happen that he just took everything to another level. Just amazing. So I just feel like because of his kindness and his respect for the process, he made sure that everybody else respected the process and didn't make it about them. So I feel like no one really acted out because if he wasn't acting out, how could you? You know, like he had more to do than anybody initially.
Yeah. Yeah, the thing I love so much about The Office is the subtlety of it, you know? I mean, there's a ton of just ridiculous moments, but so much happens with just a facial expression or a quick cut or whatever.
It's so true. And I think that also just like enjoying being an ensemble person, because you know what we learned in Chicago doing improv when I studied at Second City and when I studied with Del Close, it's like you want to be the best scene partner ever, even if you don't talk. You want to you want to be a fully fleshed out human being, even if you're
Yeah,
not talking. And we would literally start, first couple seasons, we would start doing what they called general views, where we did like fake office work. So it wasn't like once you got a line, suddenly you acted like you were doing paperwork. It's like you were really genuinely doing something. They actually asked us to bring paperwork to the set.
really.
Yeah, so I love that. So it was kind of a sense of like this commitment to this place and these characters and like these fully fleshed out beings. It was pretty cool.
Yeah. But you did ad lib as well, right? Like
From
you,
time to time, yeah. I mean, like I say, I always feel like they would, lay the bricks. They would lay the carpet on top of the bricks. They bring the brass band down, and like maybe it took a couple extra steps. And you'd be like, okay, I came up with that, or you know what I'm saying. Like I feel like the setups were pretty fantastic. So I can't take too much credit. I mean, there were a few times I was, lucky enough to have a moment. I remember in season one, there was a healthcare episode where we were, Dwight was cutting our health insurance. So we were coming up, Jim and Pam had put all these fake diseases in a box and
yeah,
made him ask questions and like answer to it. And I think it was like there was a thing called an inverted penis, and I was my character just had a hysterectomy, so I said I want mine covered. Yours is different from a vagina. I still have a vagina. So that was improvised. And I remember like Greg Daniels running into me at the restaurant where I worked and saying, "Oh my God, NBC doesn't necessarily want you to say vagina, but we want to keep it in." It was like he's fighting for this moment, and um, it was fantastic, and it did make it in. But it's just like these moments where you're so grateful that you got a chance to have fun and maybe bat the ball around a little bit. And even if you don't get that chance for like many episodes later, that's okay.
yeah, that's cool. So let's rewind for a second because I just have to call out this parallel. You, if I understand right, you were still waiting tables
I was.
during a bit of the first season of The
Yeah, the
Office
whole
because
first of the office, I kept my job, and I didn't quit until right before we went back for season two, when we officially got the date.
how
Uh,
cool is that? So I waited tables the first 3 years of Lovesac
wow.
because it didn't pay the bills. In fact, Lovesac took all my money.
Gosh.
Just because you got to buy fabric, you got to fix the van, you got to fix the shredder, and so I know that feeling a little bit. And in fact, I will never forget. I was waiting tables, ready to quit that week because I had been on the side building the factory for the first really big order that would require me like full time, round the clock, like running machinery with 20 people. And so I was doing that in the afternoons, building this factory, and then go and put on the apron, waiting tables. And I met the guy. He said, I was being a waiter. I'm like a charismatic waiter doing my thing. And what do you do? And he makes signs. And I'm like, give me your card. I might need it someday. And he ended up making the first Lovesac neon sign that was kind of famous
Wow.
in our own lore. Because he's this guy that I met waiting tables, my last week waiting tables before I quit to build to go run the factory. And so What was that like for you? You know,
Well,
like,
what I always say to people is that, it's not a punishment. It doesn't mean you're not doing it right if you have to work another job while you're following your dreams. Even if you get your dream job, if it doesn't pay enough, you still have to work you still have to be self-serving and pay your bills.
hold on. I love that you said, even if you get your dream job and it doesn't pay enough, because most people would think of their dream job as being like money raining down on me, but not necessarily, right? Like you got your dream job. It may not have even paid that great in season one. I don't know how these things are
Not initially,
negotiated.
no, and we didn't do
Yeah.
that for the episode, so that was the other thing. It was like but that's the thing. It's like if you there was a book that came out in the 90s called The Artist Way. It's a great book, but there's a line in it that I feel like tripped up a lot of people I knew. It was do what you love, the money will follow. So people were like not making rent, like whining, I'm doing what I love. I'm like, you might be doing what you love, but your landlady doesn't love you right now, or your landlord. Like, what are you doing? Like, you have to pay your bills. And there's something from a 12-step idea that talks about like being fully self sufficient, like being fully self serving on your own volition. Like, basically, um, it is an honor and a privilege, and you owe it to yourself to be able to support yourself. It
Wow.
actually makes everything better, because I know I even went through a thing where I was trying to work less at the restaurant, and I was like, and I wasn't working, I just wasn't booking. And then I realized I needed my machine, like my personal machine, to work more. So the more I actually picked up more shifts, like the more productive I became in the rest of my life.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah,
I
and I
believe in
didn't get that at first.
I believe in work. I
Yeah,
don't even believe in retirement. And look, I'm not there yet. I mean, but I
I don't
kind of
know if
hope,
I'll ever be there. Yeah.
yeah, I hope I can just work,
Yeah, me too.
and look, we might work a little less. We might make some money and take it a little easier and make more time for our kids or whatever it might be. In your case, they're great. I mean, look at Betty White, right? Like Joan Rivers, so many funny women who,
Who are dead. I'm still alive. I'm not one of I'm sorry. They're both dead. I'm not dead yet. But I no, I totally with my dad lived to be 100, and he owned a bar, and he worked until he was 87, and only because they sold the business. He was like, what am I doing here? But I learned a lot from him, because he was so present in his age, like in his old age.
yeah. Well, and in your world, I feel like, look, I'm a huge movie guy. I try to see everything. I really like movies and media. And I think that there are so many examples of people who seem to just like they may have done stuff when they were younger, but I only know them as like, older actors, more mature actor, whatever it is. And I just think you're in a unique uh profession where you have the chance to like go forever, really.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. We'll see what Hollywood has to say about it. But I'm still creating. I'm actually working on a book right now. I have a book deal, and it's interesting because I'm so hard on myself, and I didn't realize how much of a perfectionist I would be in an area that I have no business being a perfectionist in, because I've never written like this. I mean, I've written for my comedy act, but it's but it to me, and getting to do like something like Dancing with the Stars and getting to be on tour with Jane Lynch, where I'm like, I'm
Yeah.
literally getting to, you know, use a different skill in the art.
Amazing, by the way. I mean,
Yeah,
dancing,
it's amazing.
singing,
It's so
like
fun. And Jane and
triple
I,
threat.
we just put together a new non-Christmas show this summer, because we always do our Christmas tour, but we're doing a new non-holiday show, and it's basically like we were born in the '60s, now we're in our 60s, so we're doing songs from the '60s. But it's just like that sense of like we're just getting started. Like little,
Yeah.
sometimes I feel like, oh my God, I wish I had this um, clarity in my 20s. And even in my 30s, I feel like my 30s were a little rough. I had a lot of failures, but that's okay. It's just like this is just part of the deal. And getting the office at age 40. Luckily, I feel like I had the energy and the joy, and also just like a little more common sense, not to freak out if I read a script and I didn't have any lines in it, or maybe I had one line, whatever. I was like, I just learned to trust the process really fast, and to trust, like, maybe less is more. And I also felt like what I learned is that when I did speak, it was always worth the wait because I had memorable moments. And that's something you cannot dispute, because sometimes some characters talk so much that they lose what's funny about them. Like, oh, I want to talk more. Their reps haggle, and what they end up doing is like they take the funny out of that. They take what was special about you, and they kind of make you too much exposition, or talking too much, and you get tuned out more.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a weird thing. Very few people can hold the audience's attention. You have to have a specific skill to still be super enjoyable and talk a lot, I think.
Yeah. And the cool part is you still don't know what your career holds in store for you. And I'm really excited to watch. I mean, just as you were talking, I was thinking about, as we were talking about working and everything that still is in front of us. Just for those listening, you've got Colonel Sanders, okay, KFC, 65.
Wow.
When he founded KFC, Ray Kroc with McDonald's, 52. Vera Wang launched her first gown at 40.
Wow.
You got Bernie Marcus, Home Depot founder, at 50, getting started. And I feel like, I'm 25, 27 years in now, still running the same stupid business that I founded in college. But to your point, if I never, advanced and somehow made more money, what a blessing it is to be, living out your dream job. And what's funny is, if I'm being honest, Kate, when I got started at Lovesac as a side hustle and I was waiting tables, the other thing I was doing was playing in a band. And if I somehow was able to support myself waiting tables and playing in a band, a cover band like you, every weekend, I think I could have been happy. Now, whether or not I could have, put my kid through college that way, I don't know.
Right.
But I missed those days, and I was totally happy. I was like totally happy. Look, I love what you said. This sticks with me. You owe it to yourself to be able to support yourself. And there's no
self. It really is. Like it actually gives you self-esteem. It does. So for anybody that thinks like they should be taken care of, or they want to be taken care of, or I don't know. I did not get that gene, and I don't get it.
By the way, even that's one thing I'll share a personal aside, because it occurs to me. I've spent a big portion of my life in China. I speak Mandarin Chinese. It's a whole other story. I lived over there. I worked over there. And one of the things I've always admired, look, China has a lot of problems. It's also, run by the Communist Party.
Right.
At the same time, I've lived in San Diego. I've lived in Huntington Beach. I've seen a lot of homeless people. China has very few homeless people. And the ones that you see in the street, they're not asking you for money. They're trying to sell you something. They got something to sell you. They've got a flower to sell you. They've got these little tchotchkes to sell you. They're trying.
Yeah.
And that's why I never judge anyone working. I was a waiter for years and years. And by the way, I was a happy waiter. I loved it. Sometimes I missed the days, I had low pressure. I did my thing. I played music on the side. Like, I missed those days.
Yeah. You never took your job home with you when you're a waiter, because eventually, even if you're having a rough night, whoever you're waiting on, whoever you're serving, they have to go. They have to leave.
They have to leave.
Not stuck. They're not going to come back the next day and continue exactly the hell you were in. Even if they come back the next day, it's a fresh start. So it's actually, and I love that job so much because it's social. Your friends can actually visit you. And a lot of times I would audition for a TV show or a movie, and then I would wait on those producers like the next day, or even like so crazy. That happened.
I'm going to tell you a funny story. So I played in cover bands my whole adult life, because I, played and sang the piano, and I loved being on stage and whatever. And I finally had to give it up in my 30s because I was long into my career. Lovesac was doing, millions of dollars. We were on our way. We had our ups and downs. My venture capital investor shows up at a wedding in Deer Valley, Utah, that I'm in the wedding band for. And he's looking at me like, I know that guy. And then he realizes, so here I am, like the CEO of a company that he's invested in. He lives 7 states away. And he's looking at me as a wedding singer. And I realized, like, I think I need to stop doing this. But the thing is, I just loved it. And my point is, I didn't care. I didn't care that I'm the CEO of a company. I like playing music. And I just have so much respect for anybody who not just works. That's great. And I love what you said, like people that are willing to go out and support themselves, but that also can love their job. I loved playing music live, even if it was at a wedding. I loved being a waiter. And I think that people could listen to a podcast like this that's centers around entrepreneurship and go-getters and, perseverers, and sometimes feel less than because maybe they don't have even more ambition. They just want to
Right.
continue doing and I love it. I say, if you can find happiness and support yourself, doing whatever, keep doing whatever, and don't
Absolutely.
feel bad.
Whatever, even if you don't love it, but you can find something to love in it. Like there's something that makes you feel okay. Like find something. Everything about it doesn't have to thrill you. But if you can make peace or even find joy in some of it. Like I worked at a restaurant in Beverly Hills and I waited on a ton of super famous people. And I used to wait on a lot of old stars that were like at MGM. That was like
Mm,
last chapter of their life. And I remember they would come in with a cane, then they came in with a nurse, then they come in a wheelchair, and then they didn't come because they were gone. Like it was a very specific time. But
wow.
I was I'm such a fan of like Turner Classic Movies and old classic films that I was so excited. I knew who everybody was. I remember one time waiting on um, Nancy Sinatra and her mom, and they were having dinner with Dean Martin's wife and his daughter Dina. So it was like Rat Pack royalty. And I remember I took over the table because someone had made a mistake at the table, and they said, and they were like, I don't know. And I was like, step aside.
Give
Like
it to
this,
me.
yeah, right. But like that was exciting to me, even though, I would sometimes get yelled at by some of these older stars. But that also gave me a thick skin, and you just figure out your boundaries. But you also figure out what's kind of cool about it. Like I waited on Fay Ray. She was like in King Kong, like nuts. I mean, it's
Wow.
nuts. So life is crazy. But you just, whatever it is, or if there's like, again, if there's a job where, you like the way the room looks and it feels good in there, or you're playing great music, or you like the people you work with. If there's something that you can plug into that doesn't make you hate every day of your life, you got to find it. You got to find it.
Mm-hmm. And in your case, your career developed over a long arc. People talk about overnight success. Yours has been more like a slow simmer until obviously you had this runaway opportunity with The Office.
Absolutely.
Reflecting, how has that been a good thing versus some other path that might have broken sooner for you or whatever?
Well, I think I'm so much more grounded than I would have been when I was younger. I also understand that the fans we have the best fans, like the Office fans. They're
Yeah.
every and they live this show. They leave it on and they watch every episode, and they say, "I go to sleep with you every night," unbeknownst to me. But it's awesome because they are so excited and warm, but they're not. I don't know. I just like they don't overstep unless they're drinking. Sometimes they're a little, sometimes people say stuff when they're drinking. But in general, I feel like everybody's really great, like really lovely. And it just feels like it feels an honor to represent. I also know I'm representing the team. So even if they weren't the biggest Meredith fan, like I'm representing a show that has been in their living room and in their life for a long time, or like even they're watching like all the time on their phone wherever they go, because that happens too. So I just feel like it's nice to represent and just, have a moment and not make it just about me.
Yeah. That's awesome. And you might not have gotten that otherwise, I mean,
Oh, I don't
life
think I
can take
would.
you in different directions and
And it's so competitive when you're younger. I remember being at Second City, and there was some, and just auditioning in Hollywood in general, and some of these people would step over your dying corpse. They just would, and they get jealous.
really.
Yeah, I mean, some people get ahead. Uh, you know, Nice people don't necessarily succeed. You know
Yeah.
this. I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes there's something. There's a tenacity that can be a little mean spirited, that or really mean spirited, that succeeds. And I remember my cousin saying like, "Oh, she sounds like an awful person. She's not gonna. She's not gonna last." I'm like, "Oh, she is gonna last. Like whoever that mean person, that's usually the person that lasts." But I also think if you have really mean reps and you're playing like good cop, bad cop, if you have representation that's really mean to everybody in all these situations, I feel like that's really a reflection of you. I mean, I can't do it myself. I have to like the people I work with. I have to like and trust them. And if they're too down,
Yeah.
yeah, I can't do it. It sounds good on paper, but the daily dealings with someone who is, just disrespectful to people or just too pushy, I can't.
Well,
If I have to
look,
volunteer because of it, I don't care.
no, I agree. I think it's important to be true to yourself. And I think that those people are being true to themselves. That's who they are. And they can have success on those terms and let them have it. I think that if you really are a kind person that is considerate and doesn't want to just, like you said, step over everyone's dead body to get ahead, stay true to that. And you may not have the same success that someone else did, but that doesn't mean you can't have amazing success. It doesn't mean, by the way, that you might live a little longer because your
Right.
your heart, both literally and metaphorically, is healthier by being, let's just say, a kind person. And while uh, nastiness and um, chicanery can get you ahead in certain ways, um, it doesn't mean you can't succeed by being kind and considerate. And I just think, like, don't try and be something you're not. There are people who are wired that way, and they don't always succeed. And by the way, in the end, what does it even mean? Because a lot of those people succeed in this way, and they lose those that they love, and they damage every relationship, and so is it success or not? Right?
This is true. And I know that there are some parts of stardom that require like a lot of energy. And I mean, I even noticed when I tour with Jane Lynch, she's a much bigger star than I am. She's had a bigger career than me. I remember I met her the very first time I ever went to Second City when I was checking it out, and then I became her understudy like a year and a half later. Like I'm friends with her, but I get it. Like so there were, and she also cannot hide. She's 6 feet tall, and she's showed up in a lot of different ways in show business, and she's very well known. But I
Yeah.
really like sometimes it is more exhausting for her than it is for me,
Yeah.
because I have a certain level of success that I know how to get in and out of, and I don't feel like people hold me hostage.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if that's exactly her experience, but I do feel like sometimes you have to, in order to do some bigger work, like if you have all the lines in the movie, you're not hanging out with the crew. You may not get to know the crew's names. You just may not. It may take all your attention. So, like, I have the luxury of, getting to know people more, just in my experience, because I haven't had the biggest part. So
Yeah.
I get that. And I also realize like it doesn't make me better and them awful. It's like they need to get this job done. So they need, however they're going to do that, their process, they need to do that. And if they have a lot of lines in their head, they can't talk a lot before. You know what I mean? It's a thing, And every once in a while, I have that where I'm like, oh my god, I have to learn this. Um, every once in a while, I'd have more lines than not on The Office, and I'm like, I gotta talk to you in a minute. I'll talk to you in a minute. But it's a thing where it's like you can't compare yourself to other people. What is it? They say comparison is the thief of joy.
Yeah.
And a lot of people like it's compare and despair. Like you'll never win if you keep comparing yourself. So like if you keep your eyes on your own paper, like don't even cheat. Don't even worry about someone else's answer to life. Like worry
Look, I
about
think I think it's possible as long as you've found a way to, you know, um, make a great living at what you do, and it sounds like you have, whatever, however you define that, and you get to define that. You don't need that much money to have a great life, and people really mistake that. And in fact, it starts to work against you the other way. And I got a little taste of this. So I had 15 seconds of fame. I won a reality TV show when I was 27 years old with Richard Branson. It was like his answer to The Apprentice. It was called The Rebel Billionaire on Fox Network.
I remember that. Yes.
Okay. Well, I won that. And I was made a local celebrity, at least like in Utah. I'm from Utah. I'm from Salt Lake City, Utah. So like everyone in Salt Lake City, Utah knows who I am because this was a Fox Network TV show. Their local kid won. It's, an international, hanging out with a billionaire. And the next day, next week, whatever, I'm just trying to like race into a grocery store to buy some stuff. And I was in a huge hurry. We were late for this big event and I just needed, I don't know, I needed to take a fruit platter. Who knows? And I'm just trying to check out with a fruit platter in a massive hurry, family in the car waiting for me. And, someone's trying to like chat me up and take a selfie and do my thing. And it's like, I just got to buy this fruit platter and go. Everyone's waiting on me. And I could tell, like, as I disappoint them, that I'm now this big jerk and I'm a loser. And I met that Shawn Nelson guy and he's not cool. And it's like you losing your anonymity. And what happens, losing your anonymity is a real downside of any kind of success, especially fame.
Totally. I couldn't agree. It's tough. It's tough because
and no one cares. I mean, the worst part is even as I'm saying this, anyone listening is like, meh, 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 biggest violin in the world, whatever, smallest violin in the world, right? World's smallest violin.
Right.
Nobody cares. And that's all that, by the way, piles on top. That's like the whipped cream on top of the crap cake. Because by the way, no one will ever feel bad for you. You could contract when you're super famous. Yes, your fans will be bummed, but in the wings, many people will gladly see you get cancer and die because you're famous. And so what? And I'm not saying it's all I'm saying is like it's a cold, hard reality. And so be careful what you wish for. And it could be, Kate, that you have the best kind of fame in the sense that you have enough that you get to experience it. Now it lets you call some shots. You get to, leverage it to, guide your career had you never had any.
Right.
That might, right? But on the other hand, you get to have a life.
Yeah, no, I do feel like I have a pretty good balance. And I'm so grateful for that. So I do feel like it's right size for me. And even though sometimes I get ambitious, I'm like, oh, I wish but I think I'm not frustrated for long and I kind of go, what are you high? Like what are you thinking, Kate? Like what I get to do, I get to do a lot of different things now. And I'm so grateful for that. I work on a couple animated series and that's really fun. I kind of get to flit into this world, and Jane Lynch and I go out for 3 weeks, these 3 intense weeks, the end of November to the middle of the end of December. And it's like a thing where we're touring with a band and it's like, it's on, we don't have any days off. And, it's all that stuff. And you have to take care of yourself. You can't party because you have to have a voice for the next show. And when I toured, after I did Dancing with the Stars, I did a big chunk of the tour, which I was 55 at the time. And I'm on the bus. We only had 1 night a week of a hotel. Wow. And I did 45 of my 54 shows. We got shut down for COVID. But I did most of it. And I was really proud of myself. It was hard for a bunch of reasons, but every night, every show was 2,000, at least, 2,500 people. So you get all this energy to kind of negotiate being in these small towns and like not necessarily having any time or space to explore, but keeping the focus on this one thing. So I think the mental part too is it's just important to have support and to keep up the support, whether it's therapy or 12-step or if you're if you have a religion, if you have a philosophy, whatever that is, I feel like our dreams are so sacred and the journey to go after them is sacred. So for most of us, I think a lot of people are very sensitive, and I mean, particularly artists, but I think even CEOs I think everybody's sensitive. And I think if you don't protect some of the journey on the way, you can kind of you can knock yourself down by taking that call right before you go into an audition or a big meeting from somebody that doesn't necessarily believe in you or doesn't want you to change, doesn't want you to get bigger in your family. We all have those people in our
Oh
lives.
yeah.
They love us, but they
Oh
feel
yeah.
threatened by you becoming a different, having the success, which might make them feel like you're leaving them behind.
Well, and you just have to know that if you're lucky enough to have any kind of success, like meaningful success, like you've had, and like I've had, I get to run a public company and it has a bunch of employees and stuff like that. People will hate you too, some way, and even if you'll never learn about who they are or why they despise you, that is the human condition. And you have to be okay with that. And if you can't be okay with that, you either will internalize it and be eaten by it, or it will surprise you and shock you and tear you down. And you can't
Right.
let that happen. And so you just have to accept that. And I don't even know who a lot of these people are, but I know it, I accept it, and I move on. And so I have to ask you this, because you touched on how long it took for you, and here you are doing your thing. Does waiting longer make you appreciate the success more, or does it make you more protective of it? How do you reflect
I
on that?
think both. I mean, I even met my boyfriend on The Office. He's an NBC photographer, and he had worked on every show on NBC. ER with George Clooney and like all of Seinfeld and Will and Grace, like every show. Like he even worked on the Golden Girls because that was when he very first started. He worked on Johnny Carson. Like he just is just in the business. So I met him season one. We didn't start dating till the end of season two. He came to my comedy act, The Lampshades, and he asked me out afterwards. And so we kind of took the summer between season two and three, and then kind of came back like, hey, he wasn't there all the time. But when he was there, it was clear we were a couple. And for me, having love later is a big part of this story for me as well, because I think for some reason I had a bad picker, and I also didn't understand that it was okay to do things differently because we don't live together. We've been together for 19 years. It'll be 20 years in March. We still don't live together. And it's awesome. And he's got three
Cool.
kids, and they're in my life. And I feel like
Hmm.
I'm kind of a stepmom, without too much pressure. But just the idea of like knowing these kids for all these years, it's a long time. So I feel like for us, people will be like, when are you getting married? And I know that we're doing what we need to do.
Hmm.
I know that, and I know that we're being true to ourselves. And I think that once you can accept that too, I mean, you don't have to do things. We don't have to define ourselves by other people's successes.
Absolutely. That's a great observation. Um, for anyone listening that, looks to gain from the, I guess, Shawnism of this podcast, right? It's never too late. In the spirit of it's never too late. Any advice you could give someone about the emotional toll of being almost there for many years and sticking with it long enough to hopefully make it break? Like if you can put yourself back in that time frame, how do you keep believing in your dream?
I think for me, it's being pleasantly persistent.
Hmm.
And that means that if you have to keep calling that person who's going to possibly make a deal with you, if they've said no before, if you know you need to call them again, or you have to deal with them again, you don't bring up the past. You don't. You just find the present in it and the
Hmm.
pleasant. Like you can't fake being pleasant
Yeah.
about trying to revisit a message, like about um, revisiting an opportunity. And if it hasn't gone your way in the past, that doesn't mean that it won't. Again, like literally when I auditioned for The Office, I auditioned for the part of Jan, and I
Really?
didn't. But the casting director said, "You know what? I think you're right for this show. I don't know if it's this is your part." And that ended up, I got a call. That was February, and they just did one episode for the pilot. So they, in August, late August, they had auditions, and they called me in for a different part. Someone had done the pilot, and it didn't work out. She
Hmm.
didn't work out. So I didn't realize till I got the job that I was replacing somebody. And once again, if I had been like, screw those people, like,
Hmm.
bullshit, I'm not going back. Because a lot of people find excuses like you know, to be dismissive or I don't know. It's like better than, or find some weird, arrogant argument for themselves, not to revisit something. And I'm telling you, I'm so glad I auditioned again because it totally changed my life.
There you go. And what advice do you have for someone out there on how to be ready when that opportunity finally comes?
Well, I think you have to have faith, and that doesn't necessarily mean like spirituality or religion, but that certainly helps. Like I feel
Mm.
like having a sense of like the universe or God or something, I think it helps because I think it puts things in perspective, and I think you allow yourself the understanding that rejection is protection, and that be careful of the things you wish for, because I know my friend that got SNL did not have a great experience and did not have a great career afterwards. And I feel
She
like,
got, hold on, that's interesting. She got your dream was to
yep,
be on SNL,
yep.
and it
And
and
not every person, it doesn't work out for everybody on that show. It
mhm.
doesn't, so I was kind of reminded like, oh, careful of what you wish for. And it was also, it was right before Tina Fey became head writer, and it was a lot better for women after she arrived. So, there's things that like the timing isn't always right.
Mm.
Um, so if you haven't gotten it, it doesn't mean that it's not going to happen. It doesn't mean that people aren't thinking of you. It doesn't mean that your finish line isn't coming for this next level. Because I do believe that these are graduations we're talking about. And every time you graduate, you're a freshman. So you don't know anything, or you think you might know it all, and you can be as prepared as possible, obviously on graduation day. But when you're a freshman, there's a little humility, but also you have to be, willing to work really hard.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned, not comparing your journey with anyone else's. Comparison kills creativity, kills joy. How did you stay focused on your journey and learn to not compare your victory to these others?
I think, some of it I have to give myself, like, every once in a while I get exhausted, and I get like sometimes a little pissy. But I also know that it'll pass. Like it's going to pass because I know how I'm wired, and I just have to either like be upset in private and just get up the next day and realize it's a new day, or the next week, or whatever, however long it takes me to get over, or not even over it, through it, because it's just like sometimes it's just that gnawing thing that's in your peripheral, but don't make it your main focus.
Yeah.
If the more you focus on it, it's not going to make anything better to focus on that anger, or to I think for some people, I should say, some people are ruled by "I'll show you," and it's an angry thing.
Mm.
There's a lot of people in college who had an axe to grind, and they did very well afterwards, and that's fine. But I don't, again, like I don't know how joyful their success is.
Mm.
Um, so even though there's a lot of things I have not accomplished, I feel like I can live with it because I understand the benefit of just living my truth and just knowing like it's okay. It really is okay.
Yeah. Well, that's a recipe for happiness for sure. I appreciate you sharing.
Thank you. And another thing I was going to say is like people are trying to get what you want, what they want. It's like I'm trying, get what you want, try to get it. But then sometimes they don't want what they get,
Yeah.
and that's another thing too. It's like even if it doesn't look exactly like you. I think that was one of the gifts of The Office too, is that I really learned that, like, it's kind of fantastic not to have to learn a ton of lines every day. It's actually really fun. I could go to every award and like hang out really late because I didn't have to learn a lot of lines the next day for
Yeah,
the next day.
you just had to be there, be present.
I did, and maybe a little hungover. I mean, really, this part was just
Hey, it's
built
part of the job at that point for
right. My
Meredith.
dad on the bar, so I was like an alcoholic nepo baby to
Actually, I
begin with.
wanted to
So
ask. I have to know this because I'm not remotely involved in Hollywood. Do people that play, drunk alcoholics, who knows, on drugs, do they? Is it more effective to show up drunk, or is that all acting?
I think, well, I will say sometimes people are the opposite of their characters.
Mm-hmm.
I um I don't think my comedy partner in my 2-act Lampshades, my comedy show that I did for years, my comedy act. He actually drank on stage, and he drank a couple times on stage, and I was like, oh no, you can't hear when you drink. You think you're funnier than you are. The show was longer. Yeah, I think that playing a drunk is so much better than being drunk.
Ah,
It just is, because there's so much more play. It's really all your skills. It's you don't need the crutch of real booze
interesting.
or whatever that is. I mean, I think having an understanding of it, because I certainly waited on a lot of Merediths. My dad, there was one woman that used to drink with the guys at my dad's bar. Certainly saw a lot of women like that. I mean, not exactly, but versions
Yeah,
for sure.
you could draw from that.
Absolutely. I saw who they were, and I saw the way that they operated. But one thing I will say that I loved about Meredith was that she never apologized.
Yeah,
Like, she was not full of shame. Like, I wish I didn't apologize as much. Like, I need to take that piece from Meredith. Maybe not the hangovers and the booze, but just the sense of like just being exactly who you are and having your opinions and being like, okay, agree to disagree, whatever. Even if it's totally ridiculous. Um, but yeah, I think I loved improvising so much, and working with other people and being on teams. Being scene partners with people. It's really fun, and I get to do that on stage with Jane Lynch. We bounce off each other so much. We make mistakes, and those mistakes are not mistakes. They're opportunities for more improv and more funny. I mean, and that's what you certainly learn that. And I think that's true in life. I think you just say yes, and you don't worry about the things that don't go your way, because they can be the opportunity to make things even better.
there you go. And I'm grateful that you stayed true to who you are, that you kept honing your craft, that you're such an example to all of us who wonder if our time has passed, if, we didn't live up to our childhood star dreams. And so what the heck? And here you are still making big things happen. In fact, you're doing a Christmas show with Jane Lynch, a swinging little
touring.
Christmas. Tell us about that. Everyone should go see
Yes, we're
it.
touring. Yes, everyone should see it. We're going to be starting in outside of DC in I think Bethesda. I think it's the Sunday after Thanksgiving, and we're going till December 17th. We're playing Indiana. We're playing Iowa. We're playing Palm Springs. We got a lot of dates. We're playing Philadelphia, my hometown, on December 2nd. Yeah, so yeah, we got a lot going. Go to janelynchofficial.com, and you'll see all the dates. You can go to my Instagram, the real Kate Flannery. There's a link. But yeah, we have a lot of fun, and it's a concert. There's a lot of comedy. I always say we're like the Rat Pack, but with a couple of broads. And it's Christmas, so it's really fun.
I love it. I love it. Well, look, you should follow Kate, as I do, on Instagram at the real Kate Flannery, no spaces, 2 N's in Flannery. Be sure to check out her Swingin' Little Christmas tour with Jane Lynch now through mid-December. Tickets are available at janelynchofficial.com. It starts on the East Coast, goes all the way west.
We're also available on iTunes too.
Oh,
We have our
iTunes.
Christmas album, Swing a Little Christmas. It's on iTunes. So if you don't get out much, you can still listen. It's fun. Yeah, but thank you so much, Shawn, and thank you for these questions and this examination, because I just feel like people always want to hear all the after you make it, like, the braggadocious, the humble brag. But it is a lot of work. It's a lot of work to pursue this. And I just think if you have the courage, go for it. If you have a dream, I feel like it comes from a bigger place than just you. And if it's what you're meant to do in this lifetime, just keep pursuing it. And if you have that feeling, like, honor that. Go for it.
That's right.
Not
And
the lose.
as long as it takes. And I love that you're such a great example of that. To the starfish with the snorkel on the Masked Singer, the scene stealer from Second City, the messy Meredith Palmer herself, Ms. Kate Flannery. Thanks.
Thanks, Shawn.
And remember this, as Michael Scott once said, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Wayne Gretzky, Michael Scott.
Perfect.
So take your shot, because it's never too late to make your dream a reality. It just might save you a chunk off your own 25-year journey. Thank you.
My trip that I do once a year to take my friends away should not be the budget for your bike across America.
TikTok has become an aggregator for some of the dumbest human actions.
When I won that million, I was $2 million in debt, barely